Hello, listeners. Welcome to Happy Mind, Happy Lawyer podcast, a podcast which is dedicated to exploring work lives of lawyers. We are starting off with our ex-lawyer series. In each episode of this series, we sit down with a former lawyer who has taken the bold step of leaving law to pursue new and diverse career paths. We will delve into their stories, the challenges that they faced, the lessons learned, and the uncharted opportunities they discovered along the way. Whether you're a seasoned legal professional, wondering about a career change, or just curious about what lies beyond the courtroom of a law firm, this series offers valuable insights and guidance. Join us as we uncover the realities of making a career shift, the strategies for success, and how to navigate the uncertainties that come with change. I'm Kanika Kadam, your host for this podcast. I'm an organizational psychologist and a work coach at Happy Mind, Happy Lawyer, aka HMHL. And I worked as a banking and finance lawyer for a long time. At Happy Mind, Happy Lawyer, our aim is to help people build happier work lives, whether it's within the legal profession or outside of it. We offer consulting and workshops to law firms and organizations on their organizational behavior issues and coaching and mentorship to individual lawyers for their work-related problems. In today's episode, we're talking with Sneha Mohanty, who transitioned from a corporate lawyer to a professional illustrator and a graphic designer. Welcome, Sneha. We are excited to have you with us today and to learn about your journey.
Hi, Kanika. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And yes, I'm very, very excited to chat with you about my experiences in this and about your experience as well.
Same here, Sneha. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you and chatting with you about your journey and about your experiences. So let's begin with you giving a short introduction to our listeners about what you do.
So just to introduce myself, my name is Sneha Mohanty, and I'm a former corporate lawyer turned professional illustrator and graphic designer. I used to work in a corporate law firm as an associate. I did that for a little over 2 years when I decided to switch gears in my career. And since then I have been in the creative field in one capacity or the other. And for the past 7+ years, I have been doing what I do currently, which is illustration and graphic design.
I'm so fascinated, Sneha, that you went from being a corporate lawyer to becoming an illustrator and a graphic designer, because that's such an unconventional choice that we don't see as often. So I'm really excited to know more about your journey, and I'm sure so are our listeners as well. So before we move on into your journey about becoming an illustrator and graphic designer, I want to know from you, what made you get into the legal profession in the first place? Because you studied law and you worked as a lawyer for a few years. So how was that journey like for you? Why did you get into the legal profession, and how was that for you?
So it's since I was in 8th standard or so, I thought that I wanted to do law. I felt quite strongly about it. So I have invested a lot of years into law, which I think is true for a lot of lawyers, right? We know, pretty young that you want to do law, because I used to really enjoy civics and, fundamental rights was a favorite chapter and all of that. So I thought that, I think law would be a good career choice. I also did not want to do engineering, which was the default career option in India, at least at that time. I had applied for some engineering colleges as a backup, but it was a backup. Although I studied science in 12th, I didn't want to continue with that line. I always wanted to do something in humanities post, but it was specifically law. I also liked, I had a lot of idealistic values and, give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves, and that kind of idealistic values that you have as a teenager. I had all of that. So I thought a career in law would be the absolute best thing. for me. So that's what drove me to, go to law school. And having said that, I loved studying law. I absolutely enjoyed my 5 years in law school, and I have taken a lot from it, and I wouldn't change that at all. The fact that I studied law, I have benefited a lot from that. Even in my current career, it benefits me. So yeah, that's briefly how I got into it. And of course, after you do a 5-year degree, you have a few career options, like a few job options after that, really. So I thought, again, the default option really at that time was going into a law firm. And that's what I did. I joined a corporate law firm. I was allocated the projects, infrastructure, M&A team. And I was there for a little over 2 years. So yeah, that's my history and journey in the legal profession, really. And we had to do a lot of due diligences because it was an M&A team. And as a junior associate, obviously, you're staffed on the due diligences mostly, and a few transaction documents, some advisory work. There was a bit of a mix, but mostly it was a lot of due diligences, which we did.
And did you like the work that you did at the law firm?
So initially, yes, the first year I had a great time. The learning curve was very steep. So I enjoyed learning all the new facets of the practice of, M&A law and all of that. I enjoyed that. But because the work was a little bit repetitive, but yes, any field you work in for any number of years, it does feel repetitive. But for me, I felt that I wasn't growing after a certain point. And also, of course, how much of I liked the work, I was very, like, the circumstances in which you have to do that work were not suiting my personality type much, because things were often given to us on a, because, that's just how clients are, you get them on a very last minute basis. So those were the things that were not very ideal. Yeah, I liked the work for the most part in the first year, but beyond that, I didn't feel very connected to it. I didn't, towards the end of those 2.5 years, I felt quite burnt out, in the sense I didn't have very much of a sense of purpose, in that I didn't see the point to a lot of it. Which was very unlike me, because I'm, like, as a personality type, I'm very driven and I'm very, type A in many ways. So I couldn't recognize my own self. I was like, wait, why do I not care about this the way I used to, or the way I should be caring about this work product? Of course, I always put in my 100%, but I was not, I didn't have that connect with the client. Most of the clients were companies, right? It's not that you're working for individual people or whatever, which I have now realized that those are the things, that environment and those are the things really drive me. Connecting to the client, connecting to the customer, individual people, who connect with you. That's very important to me. So at that point, it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like I was fitting in that, setup.
I agree with you. Like, the law firm culture is very different, very demanding as well. And the kind of relationship, especially, I think in the beginning years, you don't really make that connection with the client as much. So it
Yes.
can feel that way. Was there any specific moment where you decided that, okay, this is not really working for me and I want to move on? Or was it like, a gradual process for you? You thought about it a lot and then decided?
Honestly, it was both, like, because I had been thinking about something not feeling right for months. And then suddenly at one point, I did feel that, okay, this is not working and I need to make a change, because it had taken a toll on my mental health and stress and anxiety levels. It was not working for me at all. So I had to make some change, but it was very unlike me to leave a job without having something else in hand, right? That is not what I would have thought I would ever do. But it really came down to that I had to do it. And in my head, it was always a hiatus. I thought that I'll hit the pause button and I'll just explore. I'll see, what else is there. Because that's the other thing about working in a law firm, or the particular circumstances that I was in, that there was no time to do anything else, including exploring if there's any other career option or any other job option, anything. There was no time for any of that. So I hit the pause button and I thought, let me try something else. And that's when, because I had left without another job in hand, I thought, okay, this is a good time to explore something other than the law as well. And it was always with the understanding that you can try this. And I was in my 20s. I was really young. So it was like, if you want to try this, it's fine. You can try it now and you can see how it goes. And there's always, a job in the legal field. If you want to come back to it, it's fine. So with that sort of mental cushion and pep talk in mind, that was really the background with which I set off.
Did you consider, other options within the law before you decided to move out of law?
Yes, I did. I did think of other options, like doing policy work or further studies. Then, then you could teach. But I wasn't very driven. Like when I thought about both of those options, I wasn't like, yes, like that would be amazing if I could just do that. That feeling wasn't there. And since I was leaving this job and had nothing else lined up that time, I thought that this is a good opportunity to go for whatever makes me that excited, that makes me want to work those 12-hour days or whatever, right? Even if it's for myself, then I always wanted to work for myself as well. Like this was another thing. Like as a kid, I had never imagined, like when I thought of myself as a working person, I never thought about working for a boss. I don't know, like that sounds very idealistic and foolish, but it was like there was never a boss in the scenario. I was always the boss. I was working for myself, doing various things. So I was very I always wanted to work for myself. So I thought, why not explore this option? Because this made me very, very excited. Like it really, I would say I was very driven by this vision or this idea that if this could work, this would be amazing. So why don't I give it a shot?
I think that excitement is so important for whatever you're trying to do. And when you see somebody who's so excited about their work, it's really contagious. So you do want that for yourself as well.
Yes, absolutely. That is so critical, especially if you ever want to work for yourself. You have to have that, you have to be so driven about it, that, you can overcome all the several challenges which lie ahead. And yes, in any other field as well, then I think, that energy, that drive needs to be there, especially in the early years of a career where you're setting the foundation and, really building brick by brick. It's so important because there will be so many challenges. But if you're driven and you have that fire in your belly, then it can see you through a lot of challenges, a lot of cons which come with every career. Every career has its own cons along with pros. So the pros have to really, really be good enough for you. Yeah.
You also have to pat yourself on the back when you're working alone, I think, because there's no of that external validation that comes.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest cons of working for yourself, the lack of social element. And yes, there are no promotions, there are no recognitions outside of whatever your clients and customers are telling you, but that's all mostly private, right? You're not there's no celebrating a promotion every 2-3 years. Like it just doesn't happen if you work for yourself, unless you have created an organization and made various titles and ranks. But that's a big challenge.
How did you feel about the legal profession at the time when you decided to leave?
Honestly, at that time, because I was very burnt out and I thought which later it also became very clear to me that the environment didn't suit me very much. I just did not realize when I was studying and before that how much that wouldn't suit my personality. Like, I found it very, very draining to be in a conflict situation all of the time. So whether it is negotiating with a client or working on a document, there's always a counterparty, right? You're always having to haggle and negotiate with someone else. And even if you work within, you're working on something within your team, there are a lot of conflicts in the legal field, I feel. So this was something that was weighing a lot on me at that time. And I realize now that I prefer collaborative roles a lot more. When I was leaving, this was one of the biggest points as well, that was weighing on me. And of course, the challenges with, work-life balance. But really, all of that was coming in and affecting my mental health and anxiety. And I was not able to give my best at anything. So at the time I decided to leave, that was the state I was in.
And what is your current state in your current profession?
So it would be a big lie if I said I don't have a lot of stress in my current profession. Of course, there are many stressors. There are different kind of stressors, and I am much better equipped to handle these stresses. Like when you work for yourself, you always constantly have to think about, where are your next clients coming from? Where are your next customers coming from? Right? And how much should you charge? Well, there's inflation. You need to raise your prices. That's constantly a thought. So there are many questions. You have to handle all your own very, very complicated tax work, so there are many challenges and stresses. But because I have a lot of control over my own work hours, even the work I do, which clients I work with, which customers I want to service, how do I want to approach a problem at the workplace, it's all up to me. So I find that very liberating, and therefore it's not stressful in the same way. It's a different kind of stress, and I'm obviously much better equipped to deal with this. And I like that I have so much freedom to even pivot and change exactly what I'm doing in this role, because my work has changed the kind of work I do has changed over the past 7-8 years, and it will keep changing because this field is very fast moving, and I like it. That's good. That's always something new to learn. So yeah, and of course I have much better work-life balance. I have been working from home all of this time, so there have been many blurred lines in terms of boundaries between work and personal life. But because I've been doing it for so long, I have put systems in place to guard that that separation. And I find that to be one of the biggest advantages, to be in charge of my own time, and that has helped me so much. And in fact, since I've become a mom, it's been invaluable. Like I would have probably had to leave any typical corporate job if I had it, but because I work for myself and I work from home, I have all this flexibility. I've been able to dictate my own hours and still be very, very present and active in my son's upbringing.
That's really good to hear. I think a lot of people who are listening would be interested in knowing how you really managed to have that self-discipline, really, to continue to work from home and handle personal and, your professional life while, having such a successful career all on your own. This is like really inspiring. Whenever I have talked to you even before, I've found that this is so inspiring because it's really difficult to do. And just the fact that there's somebody out there who's doing it can be really motivating for people to see. So, So, Sneha, I think our listeners would be very much interested in knowing more about the work that you do right now, because as I said, this is something which is not a conventional career option. So why don't you tell our listeners about the kind of work that you do?
So I'm an illustrator and graphic designer. So I create artwork, which I license, and people buy that artwork. They buy licenses to use that artwork on things, like they can print cards with it, they can print bed sheets, mugs, anything they like within the terms of the license. And I also create stationery items. I've also branched out into that recently. And I have an online shop. That's where I sell my things, and it's the global economy, really. So anybody can purchase it. So my work involves, so this is broadly what I do, but really I wear all the hats in my work. And that's also been a conscious decision to not hire and to keep everything in-house. To like making the artwork is probably just 10 or 20% of my time. Then there's all the design work that goes into creating the actual assets. Then I have to do all the marketing myself, right? So marketing takes a lot of time, and there are like 3-4 different channels of marketing, right? There's your Pinterest, there's email marketing, there's content marketing on your website, there's search engine optimization. There's lots of things that we need to think of, right? So all of that. Yeah, and then there's the big segment of customer service, because you do have customers coming in with queries, or who want to collaborate with you, other buyers who want to license your work, bigger licensees. So yeah, negotiating contracts with them. So all of that is part and parcel of my work, of a typical work day. So there is a lot of context switching that goes on, which can be difficult, but I'm constantly trying to refine my workflow and do things in a way that allow me to give to not do too much multitasking at the same time, because I feel that I'm not as efficient that way. So I try to batch my work. Yeah. Oh, did I mention accounting and taxes? That's another. That's another big one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel compelled to mention all of these other quote unquote departments of the work that I do, because it's not just about the illustration or the graphic design. All of these other things also take up a lot of time and energy, and they absolutely need to be done.
Yeah, that's true. I think, when people think about the other career, they're like, okay, because this is the actual task that I'm going to be doing, maybe, designing, for example. But it's so much more than that. Designing is just one part of it. But all of the things that you mentioned right now, marketing or replying to those customers, accounting, everything, all of that takes so much more time. So it's not just about the designing work.
Yes, exactly. And I should also flag that, yes, this is because I work for myself. And I mean, if you choose to work for an organization and specialize in spending all your time in doing the one task that you are an expert in, then of course you don't have to spend that time doing the other things. But then I find the pros of working for myself far higher. And I do outsource a few of these, like accounting, for example, is outsourced to my CA, but I still do have to stay on top of a lot of things on that front as well. And this part is really a lot more about like being self-employed rather than being a designer or an illustrator. I find that it really enriches me when I do a lot of the different creative tasks myself. For example, I am in charge of product research as well. Along with making the actual product, I also research what are the trends, what are people, where's the gap in the market, what do I need to make next? So typically in a big design studio or in an agency, there would be different people doing these different tasks, right? Like one person would be doing the product research, and they'll come up with their briefs and tell the creative people like what they need to illustrate. And then there'll be somebody else doing the graphic design aspect of it. The illustrator would not be doing it. But because I do all of these things myself, I feel like it's an advantage to be able to understand exactly how I can make a product stand out. And I feel that that really helps me in my workflow. And it never gets boring, honestly. Never. There's a lot of repetitive elements to my work, but yeah, it doesn't get that boring, because if I'm tired of doing one thing, I can always switch to the other thing on my endless to-do list.
Yeah. Glad that you mentioned this, because I think it's very important for somebody to figure out what it is that they like to do in their work and what is something that they don't want to do. So, all these ancillary things that you mentioned about running your own business, those are important things, right? So if somebody is not interested and doesn't want to do all of that, they'll have to figure out whether they want to outsource something like this if they want to run their own business, or is it that they would be more comfortable on only focusing on the designing work and maybe joining company or an art studio in this case, where they can just focus on the design aspect of it. And one more thing I'm really interested in knowing is that how did you come to this decision that you wanted to pursue being an illustrator and a graphic designer? Because you mentioned before that when you left the law firm, you were still exploring your options, right? So how did you finally decide on this?
It really was an evolution, because when I left, I thought I would prepare for the civil service exam because as another default career choice, right?
Yeah.
So I did that for a grand total of 2 months.
Mhm.
And then I decided, no, this is not for me. I don't want to be a civil servant. No. Great job for all the civil servants who are doing it. It's a very, very difficult job that they do. I felt that it would not suit me.
Mhm.
But it was something that I had told myself while leaving, that this is what I would do, because you have to have a story in your own head, right? A path in your own head. So
Yeah.
I actually started off doing photography. Because that was something that I knew that time I loved doing. And whenever I told anyone that I wanted to do this, I wanted to explore this, they were very supportive of it, because people were like, oh yeah, you take really nice pictures. Why don't you do it? So I just experimented, did a few portfolio shoots. You were very kindly obliged, Kanika. And we did a few shoots together. So so I did photography first, and I did that for about 2 years or so. 1.5, there was some overlap. But while I was doing that, I really learned a lot about being in the service industry, in a creative field, and how to engage with clients and how to build awareness about your products and services, marketing, all of that, and how to scale, really, because of course the thought in your mind when you're self-employed and you're doing all this is, how do I scale? How do I scale? How do I scale? At least it was for me, because I had set like various revenue goals, profit goals, really, not revenue, profit goals, and I was like, I have to meet them. And within a particular time frame. So the issue was that so I faced some challenges in that. So I thought that I need to do something which is more scalable while not having to employ other people, because I didn't want to become a manager. So I didn't want to go down that path. So then I started looking into this whole world of, online shops and, graphic design and illustrations. And I was like, okay, wow, there's things that you can do here. And I used to love doodling as a child. And I always liked cute and pretty things. And, like if I had like an ideal day to spend, I would just go into stationery shops and browse and lose myself in a stationery shop. I absolutely love all kinds of stationery. So this is something that I was already like really, really interested in. So I just explored that. And I got into it very organically in that way. So then I started a shop and I started selling. And when people were buying that thing, like, buying what I had put out there, it was just the most magical feeling that I was like, what, I have made this, whatever, this watercolor design, and someone has bought it. They have paid me money for this, and I haven't made it to their specification. This is something that I have made, that I have liked making, and they have bought it. That's amazing. That thrill was very addictive. And yes, it's a much more scalable business model. So that's how I got into it. And my work product, my work style, the things that I offer, all of that has changed and evolved over the years, and going through another big change now, because many things have changed in the last year or so, especially due to AI influence. So yeah, things, but yeah, this is broadly the field that now I have landed up in, and I enjoy it.
That's very interesting, because there's this idea out there that you have to have this one passion that you're interested in throughout, and you should know what you want to be doing. So it's important that you pointed out this part about exploring more different things that you are interested in to try to figure out what it is that you want to do. And I'm curious, Neha, how did your 5 years of law school and your law firm experience, how did that really help you in your new career? Do you think it helped you at all? And were there any transferable skills that you were able to implement from there into your new career?
I would say definitely the number one benefit has been the ability to read and negotiate contracts, because contracts are everywhere, right? You have to be confident with them. So I was very glad about my legal training and practice, because I had that experience. So I was never scared to, read a contract and do it myself. So whenever I've had bigger licensing deals, I have kept the contract in-house, and in fact I have drafted the contracts and
Wow.
sent them out to the client, and that has helped me a lot, because in this field artists are one of the most disorganized sectors per se, and they end up getting taken advantage of a lot because they are not united on a lot of issues that face us. So having this background has been very useful. And the second thing is that, knowing my value, it's a more abstract concept, but knowing my value. The problem is that a lot of illustrators and graphic designers underprice their work. In the creative field, you will find people who get taken advantage of a lot. So with that background, I always had in my head, when I was setting prices, when I was figuring out how much revenue I need to make to get to a certain profit, this, that, and the other, I had a baseline figure based on, law firm salaries. And so I made sure to price my work accordingly, so that I'm not working practically for free,
So the ability to draft contracts as well as knowing your worth, both are important aspects that I'm glad that you were able to take away from your legal career. And what were the major challenges and fears that you had? Because of course a career transition is not easy. So how did you deal with these challenges?
I think the first big fear, which did turn into a challenge also, was, the identity crisis, identity and image crisis, because this is something law was something I had given so many years of my life to, and I had always seen myself as a lawyer, as a that I was okay. I was working in a law firm, and this is my job. This is what I do, right? If I don't do this, then who am I? What am I? I can't just I haven't gone to photography school. I haven't gone to art school. Yes, I took courses to learn all of that, but I didn't, this is not something that I was prepared for, since I was in 8th standard, I had thought that I would be a lawyer, right? So it took a lot of time, and also image crisis per se, because there's always how would my friends and families react to this? What about acquaintances, And in fact, that's something that I have felt over the years, and it's just something that I have noticed now, that when you introduce yourself to a complete stranger, and you always ask each other, oh, what do you do? What do you do? So when you say, oh, you're a lawyer, or you're a corporate lawyer in India, you're a corporate lawyer, then there's always a sudden, the impression on the other person is, okay, this person must be a very hardworking, intelligent person. They immediately make certain conclusions, draw certain conclusions about you, about your personality, without knowing anything but this one job description of yours, right? But when you say something like, oh, you're an illustrator or you're a graphic designer, immediately, you can just see it. You can see the difference in facial reaction, right? So at least I have seen that, you have a lot more street cred the minute you introduce yourself as a lawyer here. And it does have a lot to do with people's ideas and also about how our world has been for the last 2-3 decades, the way it has worked. There were not too many career options which were quote unquote sought after, which were quote unquote well paid, right? And all of these things factor in in your image in society and your self-image. And I think this is something that we should talk a lot more about, because it affects people when they are trying to make a change. This is something that, for example, affects people when they retire, when they have one thing which is the source of their entire identity, and suddenly that's gone. It can lead to a bit of a crisis. I did face that issue. Then, of course, when I was changing careers, there was also the very important factor of finances, and it has to be taken into account, because yes, whatever it may be, a career in corporate law pays really well. So I did have a good amount of savings when I was leaving. So I had that cushion. But yes, it was very stressful to make sure that, where is your next customer coming from? When is your next client coming? There were many days when I was like, is this even working? And, and also the seasonality of the work, like, because I switched to photography. I switched from law to photography, and photography is a very seasonal business. Some months you have a lot of work, some months you don't have much work. You do go into a bit of a panic during those months when you should be focusing more on marketing efforts. But while doing that, you do wonder, when is the next booking going to come? I still have so many dates available for the next 3-4 months. When are they going to fill up? So these were all, these were really the main fears and challenges which, made their way. But yeah, some of the things which were irrational fears, which were not actual, which did not materialize in that way, was that, that initial fear of, oh my God, nobody is going to hire me. Nobody is going to, like, why will anyone pay me money for this? That it was not true, because you follow a process, and then you pull your portfolio, you put your work out there, you do your networking, you do your marketing, you do get customers, you do get clients, you build on that, you get word on mouth referrals. So some of those fears are irrational, but you also have to be very practical, because, for example, now I have a shop which has worked, but I had 2 other shops which did not work. Like, there were sales, but there weren't enough sales, for example. So I had to shut them. So there will be failures of that sort on the way. But this thought that, okay, there is nothing else that I can possibly do that can be a career I would say that would be an irrational fear, because you can choose, you can make your path as well.
I think we do have to experiment. So as you said, if something's going to succeed, something's going to fail as well. I think just
Absolutely.
to keep at it and keep experimenting, what is working, what is not working, and learn from it, then implement it. I think that's the key. And I'm glad that you mentioned about the career identity, because I think that's something that everybody who has made a career change has dealt with. Because, from when we are young, we are always asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's supposed to be, this one answer. Okay, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a doctor, or whatever that is. And we don't really make room for any changes there. So in that interim period when you feel like, okay, I'm neither here nor there, it's a process, and it's an emotional process to really find your career identity again. So that does take a toll.
Yeah. And when you are harangued by all these doubts and fears of your own, this is such an all-encompassing fear, which, you don't even have your identity to fall back upon. Normally, when you're faced with any challenge or crisis, you tell yourself, no, but I can do this. I have done this. I am this, like, that's how we teach kids as well, right? Oh no, you're brave, get up, you're fearless. Those get baked into your identity. So when you lose this, you don't lose really, it changes, and I feel in retrospect, with hindsight, I can say that, I think it would be helpful if we can look at the skill sets that we have, and what are the elements of something in our previous job that we enjoyed, or that we could do our best work in. What is that we can take with us, so that it's not that we're leaving something completely behind. It's not a sunk cost. It's not something that's been a waste of time or of energy or whatever, right? It has enriched your experience. It's part of your story. It's part of who you're becoming.
Correct. There's always something to learn from whatever you have done in the past.
Yeah, and it informs your behavior and the way in which you work at your next thing. And I found that my story, for example, the fact that I was a corporate lawyer, and I had changed, and I had changed careers, and I was now a full-time creative professional. Really struck a chord with many of my clients in photography and in illustration, both. So it led to fostering many of those new relationships, and just having that sense of commonality, because the patrons of those arts as well have a very, very strong creative core. They might be doing other day jobs, but many of those people used to come to me and say, oh, I wish I could also do something like this or whatever. It was just something that connected us. And it helped make that work product, whatever it was that we were working on at that point, better.
I'm glad some of our listeners, may also be thinking of making a career change. So, you saying that this is, the point of connect that they're going to make, I think, with our ex-lawyer series. And that's what we were hoping for also, so that they find that courage and to really have some sort of a plan to think about it and to make that move if they're thinking about it. Okay, so moving on to my next question. Looking back at your legal career, what are the things that you think you enjoyed the most or you liked the most? And are there similar aspects in your current profession that you enjoy doing or like to do?
So yes, I think my favorite part about my law firm job as well was client interactions. I didn't do a lot of it. I did some of it, but also it depended on the client and the circumstances in which we were working. So I had a few smaller clients who, quote unquote, smaller clients who came to us for a range of advisory questions. It was never like some panic has happened and like we need this as of yesterday basis. None of that. It was just, okay, we are wondering, we're going to do X, Y, Z. How should we do this? Or like, can you answer this question? So those kind of pieces of work, I really enjoyed a lot. And I liked having that trust and confidence from those clients. And because also I was such a junior associate, so it was wonderful to get that validation and that thrill of managing some of those clients. Like, of course, I am not saying I was the one managing them, but, just dealing with a lot of their questions on a day-to-day basis was great. So I liked that individual client interaction and connection. And that's my favorite part of my work now. But I have honestly, I can't complain much about the nature of the work I do now, because I get to work with pretty things all day long. So it's wonderful to be, I'm in my dream, dream job that I get to work with colors and patterns and textures. A lot of my working time is doing that. So I absolutely love that. And there isn't as much direct interaction with the customers because of the way in which the business is set up. But when they do, because people come to me when they are celebrating something, they come and buy from my shop for celebrations, like they are having a wedding, a birthday or whatever. So they're always in a good mood when they're doing these things. So it rubs off, there's a celebration going. There is no dispute going on, when they come to me. So I like being a part of this part of people's life. It really enriches me. And it's wonderful when, things go well and they share their feedback with you, they share photos, and that's something that really keeps me going.
Is there something that you miss about practicing in law?
So I would say I miss the social element of it. About working about my previous job. That's like, I have no co-workers, there's no office banter, there's no chit chat, there's no Diwali party, no Christmas party. So you're a solitary person, right? So that social element is something that I miss a lot about being in an office environment, and there's always and having colleagues. That's something that I miss. I don't miss everything about it because these were the pros. There are some cons as well. I think I would say that's what I miss the most, the social element.
I think I would agree with you here. I do, miss chit-chatting with colleagues and, just having lunch with people at the office, asking about their day. That social element, it's completely agree that is something that I do miss.
Yeah. And you do get to meet so many new people. There's always like new people coming, going, you expand your social network that way. So it can feel a bit stagnant in many ways, when you've been self-employed for many, many years. So in India, there are not too many people who are in this path. So it's a little difficult. Like we are, so we have each other, but there aren't too many others. So it's difficult to meet other people with similar interests. But I think, for example, abroad, there are thriving communities of self-employed people. There are co-working spaces you can join, and there's a lot.
And how do you see the legal profession now that you're outside of it? Has your view about the legal profession changed after making a career move?
Honestly, because it's been so many years since I have left, so I don't even know if things work in the same way now as they did back then. But the biggest thing that I feel is quite evident when you talk to lawyers is that most people feel a little bit burnt out, that they don't have much time for themselves. And as a person who is now no longer a lawyer and thankfully no longer deals with lawyers, thankfully, because obviously like there is no dispute going on. It's lawyers worldwide now. Like, it might sound bad when I say this, but lawyers worldwide as a group have made a rod for their own backs. Like, everywhere there's this mad expectation of being available 24/7, which is just not there in other professions. Like, it simply isn't, unless you're a doctor on call, and that's when you have to literally rush in to save someone's life. And even then, that's when you're on call. They have like on call duty, and then there's time when they're not on call. Nobody is on call 24/7. But lawyers are, like, I remember just before I left, I didn't have weekends. I didn't have the night times. Like, I was constantly like, I couldn't make any plans, any social plans or anything, which was not quote unquote subject to work. Everything was subject to work. So if something came up, you had to cancel last minute and tend to it. Even if that piece of work wasn't actually like, super, super, super urgent in the sense that it will have a real, like, when you think of what is the consequence, is there a statutory filing that needs to happen? Then yes, you need to, drop everything and do it. Is there like a court hearing that you need to prepare for? Yes, then that's a deadline that you have to. But if it isn't those things, but still you have to, make these compromises at nights and on the weekends, then that really took a big toll on me, because I'm the kind of person who just takes on a lot of responsibility personally. Like, I feel like I have to be responsible for everything, which is why it didn't suit me, to be on call. I would put everything on hold. I wouldn't be able to function the rest of the evening in anticipation of that. Yeah. Anticipating that potential call, which may not even happen. Or, when you're on vacation and things come up, it would ruin my entire mood. In fact, I have had to cancel a trip back home, a 3 or 4 day trip back home, because a document had to be done. And ultimately, that document went out like 3 or 4 months after that schedule. Oh, wow. So it was this sort of thing that, that really, it can make you feel very burnt out, right? So from the outside, therefore, I feel like a lot of it is unnecessary, this 24/7 availability, because a lot of the workload can be managed within regular working hours. You just have to be very organized and efficient with the work allocation. But having said that, one critical thing that law firm lawyers have to do, which is different, is that every person is a person who has to bill and manage, like especially mid-level lawyers and partners. They also have to manage their human resources, which is a full-time job in many other organizations, right? Like, there are managers specifically to do that job, but here billing lawyers have to do that in addition to their standard workload. And most of that management work is non-billable, so they need to give time to that as well. So it is it's a very difficult, high stress environment to be in, for sure. And yeah, some things can definitely change, but it would require systemic changes from every side, honestly.
I think, Sneha, you've just summed up a lot of issues that are faced by lawyers within the legal profession. And this also really resonates with the research that I did on what are the major job demands that are faced by the lawyers. And things like 24/7 availability, the pressure of billable hours, managing own human resources, and a high stress environment. I think all of those are the things that are contributing to the kind of issues that the lawyers are facing currently. So, yes, as you stressed, there are systemic changes that need to be made in order to really improve the legal profession. And I also think that a lot of lawyers are also leaving the profession because of these issues. So, definitely something needs to be done about that. Okay, so yeah, it has been lovely talking to you, but there's just one last question that I have for you. And that would be, what advice do you have for lawyers who are considering a career change? Are there any specific resources, strategies, something that you have learned along the way that could have been done better? Um, and how to explore these new career paths?
So I would say that look at it less as a do or die, but more as an exploration, but within a set time frame. I think setting some limits somewhere is important to keep you accountable. And I would say, yes, set measurable goals. Leverage your network. These are things which are very, very helpful when you're starting out, right? And yes, depending on what career you want to switch into, and you may not have that clarity yet. Apart from speaking to other people doing that thing for a certain amount of time, like actually speaking to them, I would not be too swayed or influenced by what we see online or on social media, because people just put up a highlight reel. That's not the reality. So apart from actually speaking to them, I would absolutely dive in headfirst and experience doing that thing, with a timeline in mind, of course. Like, try doing something for some time before really deciding if that's what you want to do. So you have that flexibility in your head, but also you kept yourself accountable for the time that you're spending on it.
Okay, so Sneha, it has been really lovely talking to you, and I'm sure that our listeners have got a lot of valuable insights from your journey, a lot of inspiration, encouragement from you. And I'm just really grateful that you agreed to be on the first episode of this podcast. So thank you, Sneha, so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Kanika, for inviting me and for this very refreshing conversation. I had such a good time, and it was really nice to reflect back and to talk about these experiences. I think, it's been a few years since we chatted in this way, and it's been such a nice time being here. Thank you so much for having me over. And I can't wait to listen to the episode and the future episode.
So that was Sneha Mohanty, a corporate lawyer turned illustrator and a graphic designer. If you want to see Sneha's work, you can log on to www.smcreatives.com and see her entire portfolio. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the HMHL podcast. It's our hope that these stories and insights not only inspire you, but also empower you in your professional journey, whether within the legal field or beyond. Remember, change is a journey, and Happy Mind, Happy Lawyer is here to support you every step of the way. To learn more about our work and access our resources for your career transition, visit www.happymindhappylawyer.com or email us at contact@happymindhappylawyer.com. Don't forget to share this with someone who might find it useful, and subscribe for more inspiring stories from ex-lawyers who've paved their paths to success. Remember, you have the power to redefine your career and find joy in your work. Until next time, I'm Kanika, wishing you clarity, courage, and a happy mind.